All right, music fans, welcome back. Harmless Dave here talking real music in real time for real people, just like you and just like me. So this is going to cover a number of different topics all rolled into one thing that Sammy Hagar was talking about in a recent interview. Apparently, he and Eddie Van Halen reconciled enough during the time that Ed had left that they were actually discussing the possibility of making new music together. Sammy Hagar, Eddie Van Halen. Now, if you go back through history, you see all of the sort of dirty laundry out there. Sammy Hagar has been apologizing for his book. I'm thinking he wants to kind of go around and ask for that book back. You know, hey, if you've got a copy of that, please send it back to the publisher. If anything, it's probably going to be in more demand because people want to go back and, you know, whether the truth is uncomfortable or not, they want to know what things were happening, why Sammy was mad at Ed and what Ed was doing. Even when Sammy joined Van Halen, when he walked in that room the first time to see those guys, there was stuff going on that he was kind of surprised at and felt as though they weren't being professional. And Sammy liked to party, obviously, but he was also a guy, I think, who worked hard and then partied hard, whereas Van Halen at one point was all about just the party, and we'll get some work done in between party episodes. But what's interesting is that Eddie Van Halen and Sammy Hagar, toward the end of Ed's life, knowing that Ed probably didn't have a lot of time left, reconciled, and they were even thinking about working together again. Now, I'm going to throw this out there at Steve Perry. Steve Perry, all right, could work again with Neal Schon, right? And the rest of the guys in Journey, at least Neal Schon and Jonathan Cain. But since what, 1998, that hasn't been a possibility. You know, it's been this divorce. It's not reconcilable. You know, call the lawyers, but time eventually runs out for people and they realize, hey, this was the best time of my life. I don't know if Steve Perry has that kind of motivation. My guess is I think he believes he's a bigger entity than Journey is right now. And a lot of people in the last couple of days since the whole Lollapalooza concert have been sending me messages saying, yeah, that wasn't so good. And I'm going, yeah, I'm not going to disagree. I've heard a lot of audio from the performance that I didn't hear the first day, and it doesn't get any better. The improvement in the audio makes things even worse. And I'm just trying to be truthful here. I'm also trying to be gentle. Vocals, when you're talking about Journey, vocals are really important. And to try to fill Steve Perry's shoes, some people say it's not Journey if Steve Perry isn't there. I would say if you had somebody in there who replicated Steve Perry in a way to help you cope, that's what I always say. It's not going to make you stop missing Steve Perry, but you'll say, holy crap, Batman, that's pretty good. He's doing a pretty good Perry right there. And I think that's what most fans would want these days. You don't have to put on the Steve Perry wig. You don't have to wear the tails or the leopard spotted thing that Perry used to wear, whatever it was. All you got to do is just get out there and try to, you know, fill those shoes to some degree. And the reason I mention all this is because Steve Perry, I think, has had a couple of opportunities, especially right after the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction, where he really could have reached out and said, you know what, let's just put the past behind us. Let's do something because, you know, our time here is limited. I mean, Neal Schon's not all that old, but Perry is a bit older than him. I think Jonathan Cain just turned 70 not too long ago. So everybody is getting up there in years, and we're losing rock stars almost in a mysterious way, you know, and I've been kind of documenting that here. Eddie Van Halen, of course, had a long, slow march toward the end, but nobody knew where he was on that march, until it was over. And then everybody was just like, what? This is why sometimes playing it close to the vest, it's good for your own privacy. But when you're a public figure like this, it's a shock to a lot of people. It like puts a lot of stress on people who care about you. And they're like, wow, who knew, right? That's why all of the accolades started pouring in. Nobody really talked about how, bad Ed was. And Sammy knew about it, obviously. I'm sure Michael Anthony knew about it. David Lee Roth probably knew about it, even though he hasn't really talked all that much about it. So I'm just thinking, for Journey fans, right? Not that Perry has to go out on tour, but imagine if those three guys, Schon, Kane, and Perry, 40 years ago, those guys were on top of the world with the Escape album. This thing blew up like nobody's business. It was just crazy. Journey at that point became a household name, a big time household name. And Herbie Herbert put the thing in overdrive and became, the corporate rock ringmaster. And of course, the band got accused of being, too corporate rock. And maybe that was true, but they were striking while that iron was hot. We know they struck for too long and for too many tour dates and put too much stress on Perry. And we know the story, but why not sit down and record something? Why not? Why not unplug the guitars? Why not do something organic and bring those old Journey fans back in? And people will still complain Perry isn't what he once was, all right? But he has so much star power and goodwill with so many people who had so many great memories of those times that I think it would work. I think it would work in the right context. And I think, like I was talking about how Lindsey Buckingham knows how to produce his vocals to still sound really good, even though his voice has aged a lot. I think stuff like that can be done, especially with Perry's thinking and the people that he typically surrounds himself with, great songwriters and people who can play the instruments. If you bring Neal Schon back in, that's a winner for everybody. You have Schon, Kane, and Perry. Even if you just had Schon and Perry, I think Kane should be there too. But even if you had those two guys kind of reconciling, it would be really good for music. It would be good for the fans. And again, based on what I've seen so far with Journey, make sure you get a lot of beer if you're going to a show. Just, again, stop. I should stop trying to encourage people to do bad things. But if you're out and you go see Journey, you'll have a good time. Because just to see these people on stage, I think the spectacle of seeing Journey just being up on stage is so cool. But then, the finished product, that's for you to hear. Go listen to the Lollapalooza concert. It was on Hulu. I don't have Hulu. I did have it at one time, but so many people have sent me clips from it that I really started to miss Steve Perry. And I've said he's never coming back, and he's not. He's probably never coming back. But my point, going back to the Hagar thing with Eddie Van Halen, is that these two guys who were basically at each other's throats at one point, once your life is definitely has a time limit on it, things change. People say, okay, that was stupid. Most people do. Some people will carry that burden, that grudge, right to their grave, and I think that is really stupid. So in any event, long-winded video, trying to make a point. I don't know if it came across, but there you go.